Streaming changed how we watch television, but there are signs the party is almost over. This is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and you are listening to lesson number 578 of Plain English. Some English learning podcasts charge money for the transcripts, but we give them away for free. You can find today's transcript at plainenglish.com/578. Coming up today, in the last 10 years, there's been a revolution in television. You know that. You may have canceled your pay television service or stopped watching over-the-air TV in favor of streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and HBO Max. But the revolution is not just in how you get your entertainment. There's also been a revolution in how entertainment is made. On today's lesson, we'll talk about why streaming services have been spending so much on new content. And on Thursday, we'll talk about why that might be coming to an end. In the second half of today's lesson, I'll show you how to use the English expression big deal, and we have a quote of the week. Let's get going. Linear television is a term that describes the way we used to watch TV. There's a limited number of channels, and they show one program at a time. It's called linear because you can see the schedule from left to right as the day progresses. If it's 9 o'clock now, look to your right on the schedule to see what's on at 10 o'clock. Follow the line to see what's on 2 hours from now at 11 o'clock, and so on. The schedule is a line, so it's called linear television. In the age of linear television, studios would research and produce seasons of popular shows. Some shows were hits, some were misses. Hit shows were good because advertisers paid more to reach more consumers. Misses were bad, but not devastating. The industry was sticky. Consumers always paid their expensive bill every month, so there was an element of safety in making television programs. You just had to keep people basically happy, just happy enough to not cancel their cable or, read a book. That's different in streaming. Now, consumers have lots of streaming options, and it's easy to cancel a service and switch to a competitor. What's more, everyone realizes streaming is the future, so nobody wants to be left behind. In response, streaming services have spent lavishly on new shows, hoping to get new subscribers and to keep the ones they have. The way they've done that is spending more on hit shows and spending more on lots of smaller shows and movies that appeal to a smaller niche audience. Why has so much money gone into television in the streaming age? There are 3 types of streaming services, and they've all had their own reasons for spending big. The first category is the streaming native. In this category, there's just one player, Netflix. It's the biggest and arguably the best service. It defined the category. Netflix started it all. Netflix has a lot of money from subscribers, and it wants to reinvest that money in new shows. Netflix has the most to lose, so the company is willing to spend to protect its territory as the market leader. The second category is the legacy media companies that have launched their own streaming services. Think of HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Peacock, even the BBC's streaming service. These companies have a lot of great content and expertise making programming, but they are afraid of being left in the dust. They are willing to spend because they know if they miss streaming, they're done. And then finally, there are the big tech companies that have their own streaming services. These include Apple TV Plus and Amazon Prime Video. Apple and Amazon have made mountains of money in recent decades from their main businesses. They've grown quickly, they've amassed piles of cash, but they need to find new ways to grow. The last big device Apple released was 10 years ago, the Apple Watch. Amazon covers much of the globe already. They need to get into new businesses, and they have a lot of cash. So they're spending some of that cash on expensive new shows, hoping that streaming might provide a source of growth in the future. They don't mind so much. If they lose money on streaming, it's not a big deal to them. So there's a lot of money sloshing around the industry. How expensive is a new show? A single episode of Yellowstone on Paramount Plus costs $30 million to make, according to its producer, Taylor Sheridan. That's the cost of a low-budget movie, and just for one episode. There are 47 episodes of Yellowstone, and there are multiple spin-offs planned. It's not just the quality and budget of shows being produced either, it's the quantity. In 2019, Netflix released more series than the entire television industry released in 2005. Think about that for a second. A service that costs $15 or $20 a month released more content in 1 year than the whole television industry did just 14 years earlier. Last year, Netflix released 891 original series. All this time, you and I have been the ones benefiting. Yes, streaming bills add up. But if you think about the quality and the selection, and if you compare it to what we used to pay for linear TV, you can come to only one conclusion. We are spoiled for choice. Now that, however, may be about to change. On Thursday's lesson, we'll talk about the reasons why the party may be ending, or at least slowing down. It is really incredible how much is out there. If you used to watch linear TV, you remember that they didn't make new shows every night or even every week. Even a good show might have only produced 20 or so episodes a year. So you would frequently tune in and watch an old episode, one you've already seen, out of order, out of context. And you would watch it because it was on. Because it was on and you were available, you'd watch it. We're so lucky these days, I can't tell you the last time I watched a show I had already seen before, because you never have to anymore. Today's expression is a big deal. No, that's the expression, big deal. This is extremely common, and I'm sure you've heard it, but I want to make sure you understand how and when to use it. This is an idiom, and it means that something is important, noteworthy, or significant. This is an idiom, so you would not use it in the most formal types of communication, but you use this in business, with friends, family, in a wide variety of contexts. You would say, "This is a big deal," or "That's a big deal," if you want to say something is important. Joe Biden is the current president of the United States, but he was vice president in March 2010 when he attended a bill signing ceremony at the White House. Barack Obama was about to sign his signature health care reform into law. It was a big deal. Democrats had been trying to reform our health insurance system for decades, and they repeatedly failed. Finally, Barack Obama and a slim majority in the legislature had passed the reform, and Obama was about to sign it. This was important. It was significant. Barack Obama had just been introduced when his vice president leaned in to give him a private whisper in his ear. This is a big, swear word, deal. The vice president whispered into Obama's ear, except there was a live microphone nearby which picked up the comment and the swear word. This was classic Biden. It was repeated over and over on television after the event. So when something is important or significant, you can say, "This is a big deal," or, to paraphrase the former vice president, "The healthcare reform is a really big deal." It doesn't have to be good. You can say something is a big deal if it's bad. Streaming losses at Disney and other companies are a big deal. Investors are taking them seriously, and they're starting to run out of patience with the spendthrift ways of the industry. You'll hear more about that on Thursday's lesson. You'll learn that Disney, for example, is laying off thousands of workers, cutting back on content. The CEO lost his job. This is a big deal. It's important. It's not good, but it's important. It's a big deal. If you want to say something is not important, something is not significant, it doesn't mean very much. You can say, it's no big deal. I doubt the streaming businesses at Amazon and Apple are profitable. They probably lose money on their streaming services. But for them, it's no big deal. They make so much money on other things, they can afford to lose a little on streaming. Plus, their streaming might enhance the value of other parts of the business. Okay, so maybe Amazon loses money on Prime Video, but it makes more people become Prime members, and those people buy more from regular Amazon, then the losses in Prime Video are no big deal. They're not important. In the US, kids obsess over where to go to college. I did. Parents obsess over where their kids will go to college. So much so that some of them break the law to boost their kids' chances of getting into prestigious universities. They study these books, the kids and the parents. They study these books and lists that rank colleges and universities by quality and prestige. They try to get into the highest ranking university possible. They measure their own self-worth by how high up they can get on the list of colleges as a 17-year-old. But a lot of successful people find that where you went to college is no big deal. They say it doesn't matter much in the long run. It's not important. It helps you get your first job. It gives you bragging rights, but sooner or later, the market figures out who are the good workers and who are not, and after a few years, it doesn't matter where you went to college, it's just not a big deal. I am maybe 80% in agreement with that statement. Harvard opens doors that are never open to other people. But if, as a student, you couldn't get into Georgetown University, number 22, and so you went to the University of Wisconsin, number 38, instead, that's probably not a big deal. That's probably not important. They're both good schools. The precise positioning in rankings is not important. It's just not a big deal if you went to number 38 instead of number 22. You can use no big deal as a way to be modest. If you do something nice for someone and that person thanks you, you can say, "Oh, it's no big deal." That means I don't deserve that much credit. It's a way of deflecting credit or being modest. If a friend picks you up at the airport, you should thank your friend profusely. In New York, an Uber ride can cost $75 or $100 from JFK Airport to Manhattan. So if someone picks you up in New York, you owe your friend a big thank you and possibly dinner. But if your friend is being modest, he or she might say, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. That's a way of being modest, deflecting credit. One more way to use big deal, you can ask, what's the big deal? That means, why is this so important? I think a lot of people are asking, what's the big deal about ChatGPT? That means, why is ChatGPT so important? You can ask the question genuinely. If you ask the question genuinely, this means, why is ChatGPT so important? I want you to tell me. But you often ask it sarcastically. If you say, what's the big deal about ChatGPT? You might mean, I don't see why ChatGPT is so important. Now, obviously, the members in our ChatGPT challenge are learning firsthand how to use it, so they know why ChatGPT is a big deal. Here's a quote for today. It's by Lorraine Hansberry, a playwright. She says, "Never be afraid to sit a while and think." Lorraine Hansberry, never be afraid to sit a while and think. That's all for today's Plain English. I want to say a big welcome to everyone participating in this week's Plain English ChatGPT Challenge. If you registered, make sure to get in there and do today's activity. The instructions came to your email. Then go into our WhatsApp group and talk about what you learned, what you thought, how you did, all that stuff. If you didn't make it in, if the deadline has passed, if you're listening to this months or years later, still check out plainenglish.com/GPT. I have a feeling we'll find some way to get you involved in the future. Remember, we'll be back on Thursday when we'll talk about the changes streaming services are making and how that will affect us as consumers. See you then.